Welcome back, everyone, to our English learning story time. Have you ever heard someone give a speech so powerful it changed a country? A speech filled with passion, hope, and a vision for a better future. A speech about dreams, fairness, and the power of peace. Today, we learn about such a leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was a brave and influential American leader who dedicated his life to fighting against unfair laws and discrimination. In the United States during his time, there were cruel rules that separated people based on the color of their skin. Dr. King challenged this injustice, not with weapons or anger, but with powerful words, peaceful protests, and immense courage. Even when he faced great danger. His journey is a profoundly important story about the struggle for equality and human rights. Let's explore his important life, understand the challenges he faced, learn about his dream, and practice our English listening skills together. Our story begins in Atlanta, Georgia, a major city in the southern part of the United States. Martin Luther King Jr. was born there quite some time ago, on January 15, 1929. His birth name was actually Michael King Jr., but his father later changed both of their names to Martin Luther King, in honor of the famous German religious reformer, Martin Luther. He grew up in a loving and supportive family. His father, Martin Luther King Sr., was a respected Baptist minister, a leader in their local church. His mother, Alberta Williams King, was a school teacher before she married. Religion and education were very important in the King household. Young Martin learned early about faith, justice, and the importance of treating all people with dignity and respect. However, growing up as a black child in the American South during the 1930s and 1940s meant facing the harsh reality of segregation every single day. What was segregation? It was a terrible system of unfair laws and social rules, often called Jim Crow laws, designed specifically to keep black people and white people separate, and to deny black people equal rights and opportunities. Imagine living in a world where you couldn't go to the same schools as white children just because of your skin color. Imagine having to drink from separate water fountains, use separate restrooms, or sit in the back section of a bus. Imagine restaurants refusing to serve you, or parks where you weren't allowed to play. This was the reality Martin Luther King Jr. experienced from a young age. He saw the unfairness, the humiliation, and the hurt that segregation caused his family, his friends, and his community. These early experiences with racism and injustice deeply affected him. They didn't make him hateful, but they filled him with a deep sadness and a growing determination to fight for change, to work towards a world where people wouldn't be judged by the color of their skin. Despite the challenges of segregation, Martin was an excellent student. He was very smart, skipped grades in school, and entered Morehouse College in Atlanta, a prestigious historically black college, when he was only 15 years old. At Morehouse, he studied sociology, and was inspired by teachers and leaders who believed in fighting for social justice. He decided to follow in his father's footsteps and become a minister. He believed that the church could play a powerful role in the struggle for equality. After Morehouse, he went north to study theology at Rosa Theological Seminary in Pennsylvania, where he continued to excel academically. It was during this time that he deeply studied the life and teachings of Mahatma Gandhi, the leader who had used non-violent resistance to help India gain independence from Britain. Gandhi's ideas about peaceful protest, civil disobedience, and the power of love to overcome hate had a profound impact on young Martin Luther King Jr. He became convinced that non-violence was the most powerful and morally right way to achieve social change and fight against injustice. This philosophy would become the cornerstone of his leadership. After finishing his theological studies, Dr. King earned his Ph.D. in systematic theology from Boston University. He was now not only a minister, but also a highly educated scholar, equipped with both deep faith and powerful intellectual tools to lead his people in the fight for fairness. In 1954, the newly married Dr. King accepted a position as pastor of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. Montgomery was a city deep in the segregated South. He couldn't have known it then, but this city would soon become the stage for one of the most pivotal moments in the American civil rights movement, and he would be thrust into the role of its leader. The turning point came on a specific day, December 1st, 1955. On that day, a quiet, dignified black woman named Rosa Parks was riding a city bus home after a long day of work. According to Montgomery's segregation laws, black passengers had to sit in the back of the bus, and if the front white section filled up, they had to give up their seats in the back to white passengers who got on later. When the bus driver ordered Rosa Parks and 3 other black passengers to give up their seats for a white man, the others moved. But Rosa Parks politely refused. She was tired, not just physically tired, but tired of giving in to unfair treatment. She was promptly arrested by the police for violating the segregation law. News of her arrest spread quickly through Montgomery's black community. People were angry and felt this was the final straw. Local civil rights leaders, including Dr. King, saw an opportunity to challenge the unjust bus segregation laws. They decided to organize a large-scale, peaceful protest. Their idea was simple but powerful: a boycott of the city buses. People collectively decide to stop using a service or buying a product as a form of protest, to put economic pressure on the system they want to change. The plan was for all black citizens in Montgomery to refuse to ride the city buses until the segregation rules were changed, and they were treated with respect. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., despite being relatively new to Montgomery, and only 26 years old, was chosen by the community leaders to lead the Montgomery Improvement Association, the organization coordinating the boycott. His powerful speaking ability, his strong moral convictions, and his commitment to nonviolence made him a natural choice. The Montgomery Bus Boycott began on December 5, 1955, and it was remarkably successful. From the start, the vast majority of Montgomery's black population participated. This wasn't easy. People had to walk miles to work, sometimes in bad weather. They organized complex carpools, using private cars and station wagons, often driven by volunteers, to help get people where they needed to go. The boycott lasted for an astonishing 381 days. More than a full year. Throughout this long and difficult period, Dr. King played a crucial role. He gave inspiring speeches at mass meetings held in churches, encouraging people to remain united and committed to the cause. Crucially, he constantly emphasized the principle of nonviolence. Even when boycotters faced threats, harassment, and even violence from those who opposed them, he urged them not to retaliate with anger or force. He preached love, forgiveness, and peaceful resistance as the morally superior, and ultimately more effective way to fight injustice. His leadership provided strength and hope. During challenging times, the boycott put enormous financial pressure on the bus company and downtown businesses. Finally, the legal challenge reached the highest court in the country. In November 1956, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that segregation on public buses was illegal, violating the Constitution. This was a monumental victory. The Montgomery Bus Boycott ended in triumph, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. emerged as a prominent national figure and the leading voice of the growing civil rights movement. The success in Montgomery showed that peaceful, organized protest could indeed bring about change, even against deeply entrenched systems of segregation. It was just the beginning of a much larger struggle, and Dr. King was ready to lead the way. Following the victory in Montgomery, Dr. King helped found the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC. In 1957, this organization brought together black churches and ministers across the South to coordinate nonviolent efforts to fight for civil rights. Dr. King served as its president and leading strategist. The next decade saw the intensification of the civil rights movement, with Dr. King at its forefront. The movement's goals expanded beyond just bus segregation. They fought to end segregation in schools, restaurants, hotels, and all public facilities. They fought for fair housing opportunities. And crucially, they fought for the right for Black Americans, especially in the South, to vote freely and safely, without facing unfair literacy tests, poll taxes, or intimidation. The primary strategy remained peaceful resistance, inspired by Gandhi and Christian teachings. This involved various tactics: marches, sit-ins, boycotts, voter registration drives, and powerful speeches and sermons. Dr. King used his incredible gift for oratory to inspire protesters, challenge the conscience of the nation, and articulate the moral basis for equality. This path was far from easy. The opposition was fierce. Those who benefited from segregation, or held deep racial prejudice, resisted change vehemently. Civil rights activists, including Dr. King, frequently faced verbal abuse, physical attacks, police brutality, bombings, and unjust arrests. Dr. King himself was jailed numerous times for his peaceful activities. Yet, through it all, he maintained his commitment to nonviolence, and urged his followers to do the same, demonstrating immense personal courage. One of the most iconic moments of the entire movement occurred in August 1963, the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Over 250,000 people, black and white, gathered peacefully in Washington, D.C. to demand civil rights legislation. Standing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, Dr. King delivered his most famous and enduring speech, known forever as the "I Have a Dream" speech. In soaring language, he spoke of his dream for America, a dream deeply rooted in the nation's own ideals of freedom and equality. He dreamed of a future where his children will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. He called for an end to racism and segregation, urging the nation to live up to its promise of liberty and justice for all. The speech resonated powerfully across the country and the world, becoming a defining moment in the struggle for human rights, and inspiring millions with its message of hope and equality. The pressure created by the civil rights movement, highlighted by events like the March on Washington, and the non-violent protests in places like Birmingham, Alabama, finally spurred the federal government into action. Two major pieces of legislation were passed, representing enormous victories for the movement. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. It made segregation in public places illegal across the entire United States. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 aimed to overcome the legal barriers that had prevented African Americans from exercising their constitutional right to vote. It outlawed discriminatory voting practices. These laws marked a turning point in American history, dismantling the legal structure of segregation. While the fight for true equality was far from over, these were monumental steps forward, achieved largely through the courage and persistence of the nonviolent civil rights movement, led by Dr. King. In recognition of his extraordinary leadership and his unwavering commitment to achieving racial justice through nonviolent means, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. At age 35, he was the youngest person ever to receive the prestigious award at that time. He accepted the prize not just for himself, but on behalf of the entire movement, emphasizing that the struggle was ongoing. In the later years of his life, Dr. King began to broaden his focus. While continuing the fight for racial equality, he also started speaking out more forcefully against poverty, arguing that economic injustice was deeply linked to racial injustice. He began organizing a Poor People's Campaign to demand economic rights for all disadvantaged Americans. He also became an outspoken critic of the Vietnam War, believing it was morally wrong, and diverted resources needed to address poverty and inequality at home. These stances were sometimes controversial, even among some of his former allies, but reflected his deepening commitment to universal justice and peace. Tragically, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s life and work were cut short on April 4, 1968, while standing on the balcony of his motel room in Memphis, Tennessee, where he had gone to support striking sanitation workers. He was assassinated. He was shot and killed by an assassin. He was only 39 years old. His death sent shockwaves of grief and anger across the United States and around the world. Riots broke out in many cities. It felt like a terrible blow to the cause of peace and justice. A voice of reason, compassion, and extraordinary moral courage had been silenced far too soon. But Dr. King's influence did not die with him. His legacy is profound and continues to inspire people globally. What did he leave behind? Firstly, tangible progress in civil rights. He was the undisputed leader of the movement that successfully dismantled the system of legal segregation in the United States and secured fundamental voting rights for African Americans. While racial inequality persists, the legal barriers he fought against were largely torn down, thanks to his efforts. Secondly, he proved the immense power of nonviolence. In an era marked by conflict and upheaval, he consistently advocated for and practiced peaceful resistance as the most effective and morally sound way to achieve social change. His philosophy and tactics inspired countless human rights and freedom movements, around the world. Thirdly, his words, especially the "I have a dream" speech, continue to resonate as a timeless call for equality, justice, and human dignity. It remains one of the most powerful and quoted speeches in history, reminding us of the ideal of a society where everyone is judged by their character. Fourth, he became and remains a global symbol of hope and courage. His willingness to face danger, imprisonment, and ultimately death for his beliefs inspires people everywhere who are fighting against oppression and injustice. In the United States, Martin Luther King Jr. Day is now a national holiday, honoring his life and legacy each January. So, what final lessons can we take from the powerful life story of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? Stand up for fairness, justice. Dr. King dedicated his life to fighting against injustice. His example teaches us the importance of speaking out and taking action when we see unfairness, even if it's difficult or unpopular. Peace can be powerful. Non-violence, he demonstrated that non-violent resistance, driven by moral conviction, can be an incredibly strong force for change, capable of challenging even entrenched systems of power. Words can inspire change. Power of speech. Dr. King was a master orator. His speeches moved hearts, changed minds, and mobilized millions. It shows the profound impact that clear, passionate, and morally grounded communication can have. Courage in adversity. Facing constant threats, arrests, and violence requires immense courage. Dr. King showed us the importance of standing firm in our beliefs, even in the face of danger. The dream lives on, hope and persistence. Although Dr. King was assassinated, his dream of equality and justice did not die. His life teaches us that even if progress is slow and faces setbacks, the fight for a better world is always worth continuing with hope and persistence. Before we conclude, let's review some of the key English words we encountered in Dr. King's story: leader, speech, dream, fairness, peace, equality, segregation, separate, unfair laws, pastor, justice, non-violence, racism, determination, boycott, protest, threat, violence, Supreme Court, illegal, victory, national figure, civil rights movement, equal rights, vote, resistance, march, sit-in, police brutality, arrest, courage, Washington, D.C., I have a dream, character, skin color, inspire, law, poverty, war, assassinate, legacy, hope, persistence. Remembering these words will help you talk about important historical events and ideas. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was more than just a historical figure. He was a moral force whose actions and words continue to challenge and inspire us today. His journey from a young pastor in Montgomery to a global symbol of peace and justice is a testament to the power of conviction, courage, and the unwavering belief in a dream of equality for all people. His life reminds us that even in the face of deep hatred and division, love and non-violence can forge a path towards a better future. That concludes our exploration of the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I hope his powerful story has not only helped your English comprehension, but also given you much to think about. Keep practicing your English, keep learning about the world, and keep striving for fairness in your own way. Thank you for joining me today. Goodbye. and I look forward to our next lesson together.